Hey everyone, and welcome back to Planet Coaster. You'll notice a little bit of artifacting here, but pretty cool news happened was that I did stream Planet Coaster here the other day. I streamed for about 4 or so hours, and a few of you did stop by, so thank you for coming by. It was for the 5,000 subscriber milestone kind of event. It was kind of announced on the previous video and in chat, so, you know, if you guys didn't see the notification, I'm sorry about that, but sadly, that's just how it rolls. I'm not gonna really try and make a specific video to announce for a stream. I don't think that has much bearing in terms of, you know, people showing up or not, but, you know, thank you for the guys who did show up and did chat and help me construct a few of these buildings. So what you're seeing is actually a sped up version of the live stream. I figured I would go ahead and make it an episode just so you guys can also see what we did accomplish, though it is sped up a lot. As I was talking and being a little bit more entertaining than just focusing on building, you're going to see that this is sped up actually about 20 times the normal speed. It can be a little jarring, but that's okay because, you know, it's just a lot of little detail work here in the initial stages, trying to get a good variation of little stalls and booths to fill in the left kind of green space area that we didn't get to on the last episode. So I'm going to design 3 new little stalls, the first one being a little bit of a lattice kind of wooden structure with some nice kind of vines and things growing up and around it to kind of create the actual walls and roof of it. Also, because the clock tower is there, it doesn't make sense to have a lot of trees and a lot of taller structures, as the clock tower itself needs to be visible from a distance away, otherwise it kind of defeats the purpose of having one there. So you'll see that that left kind of side ends up being a little bit more of an open area, kind of just the standard dirt spot where there's some shops lining it and some standard miscellaneous things like carts and a little pathway that ends up jutting through there as a little shortcut to get up to the northern kind of road there. Plenty of little plants and smaller trees. You don't want, as I said, to block off that clock tower too much. Now, the speed build section actually is going to be divided into 2 parts. The first part being what we did on the live stream, which is this building here, all that little detailing. You guys' suggestions and stuff and colors really helped with just making it look a little bit more unique than normal. So I do appreciate feedback and color suggestions and little color palette things. I think it's really nice to have people to bounce ideas off of as you are building yourself. It kind of makes it a little bit more of a dynamic process, and also takes a little bit of the pressure off of me to come up with everything on my own. Here on the live stream, you know, just showing the day-night cycle and trying to get the I was also revealing some of the plans for later elements that we're not going to get into on this video. If you guys want more detailing stuff, you should show up to the stream. I'm just saying, you know, if you were there, you would know what I was talking about. We got a upper balcony kind of going around the left spire of this new shop and section here. Definitely a nice kind of solid brick base on this. I believe on the stream I was kind of talking about like Florence and some of the old buildings there, in the sense that a lot of them will have a brick first floor. Now, one, that's also for structural reasons. It allows them to build taller without having to worry about materials, as you have such a heavy base to it. It also means that these older cities that have these kind of temptations to being sieged and you want them to be a little bit more defensible, they can actually kind of, each house can kind of act as its own little castle in essence, because the ground floor is all stone. So unless they go straight through the doorway, and they usually have smaller windows as well, that you're not getting into this person's home. So it kind of served as a 2-purpose, structural and defensive. Also, this house, obviously, we're going to be using the barn style roof here, as we haven't used it really on any other structure yet. It's kind of an interesting kind of barn style roof. It has these kind of sweeping beams on it. It's not these perfectly angular sections, which is a little off-putting, but you know, you can make it work. Gonna put some details underneath the roof of the tower just to break up and make the actual framing look a little bit bulkier and heavier in general. Some standard windows, and if you inlay windows behind another one that has actual shutters on them, you can use those shutters for your own kind of window design. So that's what I did there on the tower. Some basic woodwork. You guys have seen plenty of woodwork done before. So on the interior, we have a restroom and a drink stall. So don't really have a restroom on the right side here, so I decided to actually get one up there. This is just going to help try and keep people flowing through the paths continually in a nice kind of smoother manner, and then also to just kind of spread out the utilities so that no one's just bunching up in a certain spot, causing some traffic jams, you could say. A lot of wooden siding on the left and right side, which looks pretty nice. It's definitely heavier than, say, some other buildings that we did besides the tavern. It's definitely a bulkier structure in general. And now that we've finished the left and right sides of the garden, I actually did a little bit of a first-person view, kind of walk around here, just to see how the scale looked, and I think some people wanted to see that as well. At this point, we're pretty much going to put some trash cans inside some of the juts over the pathways so that the guests tend to stay away from those walls. They don't actually start walking directly through them, as you can use trash cans and benches and things to kind of direct the flow of traffic so you don't get as much clipping. Pretty cool to use these upside down kind of wooden, I guess they're for more balconies and bridges like that. They're more like corner pieces, but if you put them upside down, you get some pretty cool effects with just molding in general, how it joins up to the ceiling line and stuff. That is a custom tree, which we'll probably take a look at a little bit later. That is, I watched Silveret's latest video where he did that in the Asian section of his park, and use a dead tree as a base, and you use some other shrubs that we currently have access to actually progress and make the actual foliage for it. So it gets a different type of tree that we don't really have access to. So that's why I did that there. It's just a small little accent close to the little carousel. This little structure here, it's kind of like a little smaller version of the tavern in terms of elements. So a high peaked roof that we're going to make it a dark color in this thatched area. And we have an animatronic stage back here to provide music for our hungry guests and a little bit of an entertainment out behind the tavern, so people, you know, when they're drunk and stuff. Normally this would be a live band. It wouldn't be animatronic, but this is Planet Coaster. There aren't any live bands, so that's what we have there. The pirate theme also fits. You know, there's plenty of pirate themed stuff in Renaissance Fair parks. A lot of people show up as pirates, and you get plenty of cool little, I guess, eras brushing up against each other. So you get, you know, swashbucklers and pirates with like musketeers and, you know, medieval knights, and they're all just kind of having a great time together in one big park. So that's why I really like Renaissance fairs such as this. You can see that some of these items are actually being uploaded to the workshop from the first building that we just completed, so you guys can see that on the workshop. Saving some other things to potentially use them for later, like that tree, that custom-made tree, saving as a blueprint so that I can eventually just kind of copy and paste it around. And then we are pretty much wrapping up the live stream section here. I started work on this building, which is very different than normal. I went with a really charcoal gray upper story. Instead of a really bright color, I kind of wanted a dark color, and I didn't really know where I was going with it. You guys in chat helped me kind of choose the wood trim color, and we came to the conclusion that a lighter wood will generally look better against the darker background. And we also haven't used a light wood color yet. Surprisingly enough, everything has been pretty much a dark dark brown or dark red in terms of the supports. So as we go through and decorate the front end and finishing up the live stream section, we'll eventually get into, I guess, the recording that I did off live stream, which is finishing up this structure and the structure next to it, which is more of a decorative structure. I don't like to do decorative structures, as I've said before. I find decorative structures to be, I guess, a little immersion breaking if you think about it, because you don't see anyone go inside them ever. They're these fake, obviously fake facades that really don't do anything for me. So, but sometimes you run into these corner pieces that a normal structure that's enterable is just not doable. So sometimes you gotta have a little filler of a fake structure and just sandwich them in between two structures that you can enter into, and hopefully that kind of creates enough dynamic movement with your people to at least partially sell you on that piece. Now, with the lighter wood and the darker upper story on this building, it was pretty interesting that it looked a little Viking-esque, just because of the thatched roof and a whole bunch of woodwork here. And so I went ahead and put a little bit of a motif on the top, similar to the tavern, where it's just a dragon head statue. And at that point, I believe this is wrapping up the live stream section right about now. So as we go ahead and start working on some more of just the normal wooden trim of the left and right sides, pretty standard procedure at this point, just trying to make sure everything is light, and occasionally throw in some dark elements just for contrast's sake, because having a bit of contrast in the wood itself, I think, will be an important feature with this building, as otherwise it might look a little too light, you could say. Like the dark plaster behind there slowly becomes covered up with all these light elements, and if you start doing it too thick and you start doing it too much, you might run into a situation of now the whole building looks too light and there's not enough kind of light dark contrast going on to separate out the different layers anymore. Gonna add some upper windows to the kind of main first part of the wall there. This is actually a 2-story and a 3-story building kind of combined, which is pretty cool. We don't do many 3-story buildings in the park yet, mainly because Renaissance fairs, they don't really have many 3-story buildings. They might have a tower that might be 3 stories. They might have a little accent piece, but in general, they keep them 2 stories, just one for cost, and 2, they don't really let people up in the upper stories. Those upper stories are usually where they keep all their supplies and merchandise that they sell on the first floor. And so I'm okay with making the second stories very fake and very almost just for looks more so than for function, which, you know, is perfectly fine to do as long as people can go into the building. And even though you can't see to the upper floors, sometimes your mind might automatically fill that in and say, hey, maybe they do have access on the inside, we just don't know. Here's some fancier pillars for the right side balcony there, some smaller windows, and I want to dye these windows a little bit of a darker color just so they bring in the charcoal gray onto the first floor, which I think is a nice thing to do, is to kind of invert your colors. So the upper story has the charcoal gray as its base. The first floor actually has more of that sandstone color as its base. And then we use dark elements down there and then light elements up top. And you get a nice kind of contrast between the first floor and the upper floors, and then also between the wall and the little decorative pieces on that wall. And then here we're just copying the front section and just moving it, making it fit the left and right sides in general, trying to put in just a little bit more woodwork to tie everything together. An upper window with a little bit of color on it, some red roof tiles. You know, sometimes it's nice to have just a little touch of color that's completely different than the rest of the building, just so that piece itself looks far more unique and maybe a little bit more fancy than it otherwise would have. by itself if you just kept the light wood color and the thatch roof color. I think that little window might have looked a little too plain. Here is the little filler structure. You can see I'm not worrying about the interior. I'm not worrying about the clipping or anything like that. All I am doing is trying to make it look kind of like a storage barn, if you think about it, with the front side there and these closed, shut-off windows and very thick wooden kind of support columns that really makes the structure very grounded. So that's going to be it for today's speed build section. If it was a little jarring, I apologize, but that's kind of the nature of 4 hours of recording into 15 minutes. So let's kick it over to real-time me. Okay, so here we are. This is actually the episode where we have pretty much the front plaza entryway into our park completed. I think it looks awesome. This is definitely my favorite park I've worked on so far. I don't know if that's just because of Alpha 3 and all the interesting pieces and buildings we can create much easier, or if it's just because Renaissance fairs are so close to my heart that I'm just like giddy over excitement when building these structures. But I mean, just look at this. This is pretty cool, and adding a whole bunch of the greenery back in really makes it feel at ground level this busy kind of fair. And then once we get more and more people into the park, it'll just get even busier looking as you know, we're only at 700 people roughly. The last Pokemon park had 4,000, so I'm interested to see if that gets this big or not in comparison, but I hope it does. You can see we have these trash cans now inside the walls. It really prevents people from going into this jut into the pathway. We also have some hidden a little bit into the scenery itself, which makes them avoid this cart and the pillar a little bit better, though occasionally they do clip through, as you can see, just a little bit. But that's I can deal with that. That's acceptable in my mind. Over here, this is the building you saw me build, or at least one of them, this kind of Viking-esque structure with the light wood and the dark plaster. And we have on the interior here, I believe it's just restrooms, and then also a actual, I think this is a first aid stall of some kind. I don't really know what that does yet. Here are some of the smaller stalls. In fact, since nighttime is falling, we can look at it. We have a pretty cool little dragon torch here. Now, normally this should be facing upwards, but I figured that might be catching the wood on fire, that we angled it forward, and it also creates a little bit more play into the path itself. I really like having things overlaying onto the path. I really like things interacting with the path as much as possible. And so you can see this is kind of like I guess the stall, the theming of it was a little bit more of a potion maker kind of stall. We have a cauldron in here, a bunch of kind of fancier vases, and some containers down below. We have a cart full of flowers, a little path jutting through inside these little roped off areas. This guy actually is probably a stone carver, so he sells some carvings, and so we just inlaid those onto his desk itself. Little benches, little green spaces, overgrown sections, creating some nice play of foliage to structure. This person, I guess, would be like a cook. He has a furnace, some wider, I guess, pots to store ingredients maybe. We have some additional, you know, little wagons back here, some carts selling cheese. Finally found a spot to place a well, which I've kind of been looking for a little while now. And so this little section definitely filled in the dead space rather nicely, and we can even bring some of that greenery around the ride now. It doesn't look quite as barren, and definitely filled the whole spot in. I think really nice. So let's head over here. Let's check the stage area first for the tavern. The band is playing, and this is just a coin-operated little animatronic kind of stage back here, though normally this should be a live band. We have a backstage little building attached, and it matches the colors of the tavern. So we have the dark roof here, the stone kind of walls to represent the first floor, and then little orange towers to represent the little orange tower on the right side. So I think that turned out really nice, and just hearing the music around the tavern is a really good atmospheric setting for our park, I think. Over here, this structure is actually on the workshop now. I could probably put a link to it down in the description. And this is just another shop. It is a drink and restroom stall. Here is some of the little detailing we get in around the roof line. Adding some of that purple back in. Some of those reddish, dark kind of reddish browns for the wooden elements. And even getting some wooden elements for the tops of the windows. I'm not making really fancy windows. That's on purpose, as Renaissance fairs, you know, I can't go full fantasy. You know, these things have to look a little budgeted. This is definitely a very high-end Renaissance fair, but, you know, it still needs to look campy. And I think we are accomplishing that. Yeah, we got a restroom, drink stall, trash can in here. I could probably also just drop a little bit of a bench, which is scenery. We'll just drop a bench in here, just so maybe they're waiting, if I can actually use the sort function correctly. There we go. I'm leaving all the interior decorating not finished on purpose. One, because it's not super relevant, as generally you're playing from this view anyways. And then two, if they're uploaded to the workshop, maybe you guys want to decorate them to fit your own park a little bit more than my park. So I think that's good to keep in mind. Over here, you'll notice that we actually have some concrete. Now, I laid this out, and I announced this during the stream, is that we're going to be working on the castle soon, here in the probably next episode or two. And it's going to be the last section that is on this upper area. We're going to have a little valley down on the back side, which will add some different elements, hopefully. But this road here, this is going to lead to the castle itself, and hopefully that'll look cool for you guys. So I think that's going to do us for this episode of Planet Coaster. I hope you guys enjoyed, and again, thank you guys for subscribing and reaching that 5,000 milestone. I would make a vlog, but I feel like, I don't know, vlogs are kind of overdone. I'd rather just create more content for you guys. If you guys want a vlog, I can do one. If you guys have any questions, maybe you can let me know in the comments down below, and I can be more than happy to answer any questions that you have for me. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time in some more Planet Coaster.